You think you know women? Think again. Beyond lipstick and soft smiles lies an entire universe of instincts, coded behaviors, and psychological truths that even many women don't fully understand about themselves. Why does she linger after intimacy while you feel the urge to retreat into silence? Why does a seemingly innocent glance or subtle foot movement mean more than any words exchanged? And perhaps most surprisingly, why do the most profound connections emerge not from bedroom theatrics, but from shared silences, synced breathing, and simple, honest presence? In this video, we explore the secret psychology of women through the dual lens of modern behavioral science and ancient Stoic wisdom. We'll break down what truly ignites desire, how attraction silently grows, and the subtle signals that too many men ignore. And by the end, you won't just understand women better. You'll understand yourself. This isn't a pickup artist course. This is human truth, raw, awkward, and often beautiful. Let's begin. At the heart of female psychology lies a truth that's often misunderstood by men. Desire is emotional before it's physical. While men may be sparked visually and immediately, women's arousal is often rooted in a more layered build-up, one that involves emotional safety timing, hormonal states, and subtle sensory signals. That's not to say women are complicated. In fact, when you understand the internal compass of female desire, it becomes clear they're simply tuned to signals that most men haven't been taught to read. Let's start with a common post-intimacy contradiction. After intercourse, many men experience a biochemical dip, a cocktail of prolactin and dopamine withdrawal that causes a need for rest. That's why you may feel the overwhelming urge to roll over and sleep. But for women, this moment is often just the beginning of emotional deepening. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, surges. Her nervous system wants reassurance, physical closeness, eye contact, soft touch. When that intimacy is denied, it's not just about the moment, it registers as rejection. And over time, this repeated pattern can erode the sense of emotional safety in the relationship. I once spoke with a therapist who had worked with dozens of couples over 10 years. She said one of the most common resentments she hears from women is, "He makes me feel desired until he gets what he wants." It wasn't about the act. It was about the absence of what came after. Stoic insight #1. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." If we flip that to intimacy, we have 2 hands and 1 mouth so that we can comfort twice as much as we explain. Connection is a practice, not a performance. Now let's get into a topic that makes many men uncomfortable: emotional arousal. Women aren't just triggered by physical touch. Their senses pick up on micro-behaviors, tone of voice, intention behind a gesture, the confidence or lack thereof in eye contact. Have you ever wondered why a woman might avoid eye contact after a date, or why she keeps glancing down? These aren't random. They're behavioral tells. Avoiding eye contact typically signals a lack of comfort or interest, but sustained soft eye contact, that's often the green light you didn't see. And here's a subtle one: the direction of her feet. Studies show that when someone is subconsciously interested in another person, they tend to point their feet toward them. It's a primal signal. Body facing the door she's mentally checking out, feet toward you. There's presence. But perhaps the most misunderstood part of female psychology: how desire evolves with age. Between the ages of 40 and 50, many women report stronger orgasms and deeper sexual fulfillment than in their younger years. Why? 2 reasons: hormonal rebalancing and, most importantly, self-knowledge. Women in this stage of life often carry less insecurity and fewer inhibitions. They know what works. They ask for it. They aren't interested in the performance, they want presence. And presence is power. In a survey of women aged 35-55, a surprising number reported higher sexual confidence than they had in their 20s. One woman put it beautifully: "I stopped worrying about how I looked and started focusing on how I felt, and everything changed." She wasn't chasing approval. She was embodying pleasure. Stoic insight #2. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." For men, the takeaway is simple: stop trying to control female desire, start understanding it. One final note for this section. When it comes to sexual compatibility, many women see it as essential before commitment. Studies show 80% of women prefer to test physical connection before marriage. This isn't promiscuity, it's clarity. Compatibility, chemistry, and communication. If one is missing, the other 2 often collapse. If you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, was she into me, you're not alone. Unlike the overt signals that dominate pop culture, bold, flirting, direct compliments, and dramatic gestures, real female attraction often speaks in whispers, not shouts. The problem is most men don't speak the language. Let's start with something simple: lip licking. In studies of human courtship behavior, researchers noticed that women tend to lick their lips more frequently when speaking with someone they find attractive. Why? It's subconscious. Moistening the lips draws attention to the mouth, a center of communication and sensuality. Now, here's a scenario. You're at a cafe seated across from a woman. She's sipping her drink, smiling politely. She keeps brushing her hair behind her ear, adjusts her necklace, and occasionally leans in when you talk. That's not fidgeting, that's choreography. These micro movements, playing with hair, adjusting clothes, exposing the neck, are all primal signs of interest encoded in our nervous systems through millennia of courtship. It's not manipulation, it's instinct. Stoic insight, #3 Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The same applies to dating. Don't overthink what she might mean. Tune into what's present, not what your fear projects. Here's another powerful cue: proximity. Women who are drawn to someone tend to subtly reduce personal space. If she leans in during conversation, brushes her hand close to yours, or finds reasons to stand nearer, these are clues that words haven't yet spoken. A guy once shared his confusion after several coffee dates with a woman who seemed just polite. I asked him, "When she laughs, does she touch your arm?" He paused. "Yes, actually. Every time." That was her signal. She wasn't cold. He was just reading the wrong book. Now let's flip the lens for a moment. When a woman is not interested, her body will often betray her before her words do. Avoiding eye contact, turning her body away, glancing at her phone, a flat tone of voice. This isn't rudeness, it's clarity. The problem is that many men misinterpret politeness for flirtation. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is learning to differentiate warmth from interest. Just because she smiles doesn't mean she wants you. But if she mirrors your gestures, finds reasons to keep the conversation going, and asks you questions, she probably does. Another subtle signal: where her feet point. As mentioned earlier, this is primal. A woman may say one thing, but her feet may be pointed directly at the person she's drawn to in a room. These behavioral patterns might sound small, but they add up. Why does this matter? Because a man who learns to read unspoken cues is less likely to become clingy, awkward, or pushy. He becomes confident because he understands what's really going on beneath the surface. Stoic insight #4. He who angers you conquers you. But it's not just about anger, it's about impulse. If you act without awareness, you're not leading, you're chasing. And that's the quickest way to drain attraction. Lastly, let's talk about one of the most unexpected attractors: a man's scent. Science confirms that pheromones, subtle chemical signals our bodies emit, play a bigger role in attraction than we once thought. Women often describe a man's natural scent as comforting, exciting, or addictive. But what they're really sensing is health, cleanliness, vitality. So no, you don't need designer cologne. You need good hygiene, a clean body, and maybe a worn-in cotton shirt she can steal. A female psychology student once said, "I knew I liked him when I caught myself wanting to breathe him in." Attraction isn't just mental, it's chemical, and no amount of pickup lines can replace that. Here's the truth. You don't need to become louder, funnier, or richer to attract the right woman. You need to become more observant. When you do, you'll notice that most of what you thought was random wasn't random at all. In today's culture of fast connections and faster disconnections, one concept is often overlooked, yet it's the key to deepening attraction and building lasting intimacy. That concept is aftercare. You might associate that word with clinical settings or therapy, but in the context of romantic connection, it refers to everything that happens after the physical act. It's the touch after the climax, the whispered question, "You okay?" The arm draped around her back, the silence that feels like warmth, not emptiness. For many women, this is the real moment of intimacy. Because here's the truth, it's not the act of sex that creates emotional closeness, it's what follows. In neuroscience, women are shown to release a surge of oxytocin after sex, the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical that floods a mother's brain after childbirth. This hormone doesn't just make women feel closer. It makes them more emotionally open, more vulnerable, and more connected if that connection is reciprocated. But what happens when it's not? When a man rolls over? When silence replaces affection? When she's left alone in that rush of neurochemical exposure? It creates dissonance. and repeated dissonance turns desire into distrust. A woman once shared in a relationship podcast, "I could handle the casual nature of our hookup. What hurt wasn't the sex, it was that he didn't look at me afterward. It made me feel invisible." That's what many men fail to grasp. For some women, being seen after is more intimate than being touched during. Stoic insight #5. The Stoics valued presence above performance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Being a good man in this context doesn't mean being a simp or catering to every need. It means being aware, present, respectful of the invisible bridges women are constantly building toward you. This concept of aftercare goes far beyond physical intimacy. It applies to arguments, vulnerable conversations, even first dates. What's your emotional aftercare when she opens up? Do you listen with full attention, or do you wait for your turn to talk? Do you offer reassurance without fixing? Do you witness her, or do you try to explain her feelings away? Here's the paradox: women don't need you to solve them. They need you to hold space for them to solve themselves. That space, non-judgmental, quiet, grounded, is what creates emotional safety. And emotional safety is the foundation of long-term attraction. Men often mistake excitement for connection, but connection is what remains when excitement fades. And aftercare, verbal, physical, or emotional, is how connection endures. A man once told me he felt awkward offering affection after sex. He didn't grow up with physical touch and it felt performative. But once he began asking simple things like, "How are you feeling?" or "Was that okay for you?" something shifted. His partner began opening up more. Their intimacy deepened. She didn't need grand gestures, just the sense that she mattered after the moment passed. This doesn't mean men have to change who they are, but it does mean we need to understand how women connect. And often that connection flows in the quiet moments that come after desire, not during its peak. Stoic insight #6. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. In love, integrity doesn't just mean loyalty. It means consistency, especially in the aftermath of emotional or physical vulnerability. A man who understands this will stand apart because while many chase moments of intensity, few know how to hold the space that follows. There's a myth that female sexuality fades with age, that after a certain point, maybe after motherhood or after 35, desire dims, pleasure declines, and intimacy becomes routine. But reality paints a very different picture. In fact, many women report more intense orgasms, greater confidence, and a deeper enjoyment of sex in their 40s and 50s than they did in their 20s. Why? Because with time comes clarity and often fewer inhibitions. Let's break down the female sexual timeline, not just through science, but through experience. In her 20s, a woman is often navigating external expectations about her body, her value, her performance. Many are still learning to own their pleasure. She may fake orgasms. She may say yes when she means maybe. It's a time of exploration, but also of pressure. In her 30s, things begin to shift. She may feel more empowered to ask for what she wants. She knows her body better. Her sense of identity, career, and boundaries are becoming more solid. She's less impressed by bravado, more drawn to depth. But it's in her 40s and early 50s that many women report the greatest sexual fulfillment of their lives. Why? Because societal pressure fades and self-connection deepens. These women have often stopped performing. They're no longer chasing approval. They know what works, and they want it real, not rehearsed. A study from the Journal of Sexual Medicine revealed that women aged 40-55 were more likely to report regular orgasms and sexual satisfaction than those under 30. One participant put it best: "I finally stopped thinking about how I looked and started asking how I felt, and that's when everything changed." Hormones and timing. Female desire is also shaped by biology. For example, ovulation, the peak of a woman's cycle, often leads to higher libido, greater sensitivity, and more frequent orgasms. It's nature's way of encouraging reproduction, but the emotional consequences are very real. Ovulation is also the time when women may be more drawn to risk novelty and even consider alternative partners if emotional needs aren't being met. This isn't manipulation, it's evolution. It's also why sexual timing matters. A morning touch during ovulation may be received as passion. The same touch at the wrong moment may be met with indifference. Stoic insight #7. The Stoics believed in harmony with nature, not dominance over it. As Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But being a master of yourself means also understanding the rhythms of others. Female desire is not linear. It moves with cycles monthly, yearly, and across decades. And yet the core principles remain the same. Emotional safety, physical presence, deep listening. That's why older women, those who've weathered expectation and shame, often become the most expressive lovers. They've returned to themselves. Younger men, older women. It's not uncommon for younger men to feel magnetized by women in their 40s. Why? Because confidence is magnetic. And unlike a 22-year-old trying to be hot, a 45-year-old woman often doesn't try, she is. She doesn't ask for permission to be desirable. She redefines what desire even means. A 28-year-old man described his relationship with a woman 17 years older. It was the most emotionally present connection I've ever had. There were no games, no pretending, just deep, honest intensity. This doesn't mean age is everything, but it means self-possession often grows with age. And for women, that self-possession is the gateway to profound eroticism. Stoic insight #8. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. In relationships, this could be rephrased. She may never show up this open again. How will you meet her? When a woman opens up sexually, emotionally, spiritually, she's offering more than just pleasure. She's offering presence. And the man who meets her there, not with technique, but with sincerity. Ask most men what turns women on, and they'll likely mention the usual suspects: good looks, money, charm, or physical touch. But the truth is far more nuanced and often hidden in plain sight. In reality, some of the strongest triggers of female arousal have nothing to do with sex itself. And unless you understand these non-sexual cues, you'll always be one step behind. Let's start with one of the most overlooked: intellectual presence. Women are wired to respond to emotional and mental engagement. A man who asks real questions not to impress but to understand is more attractive than a man who recites pre-rehearsed stories or flaunts shallow confidence. Why? Because curiosity is energy. And energy, when channeled with focus, creates intimacy. A woman was once asked what made her fall for her partner. She didn't say, "He swept me off my feet." She said, "He listened. He remembered small things. He asked about my dreams without trying to fix them." That's not a line, that's presence. Now let's talk about another major non-sexual turn-on: emotional regulation. Most women are hypersensitive to a man's internal state, not his words, but his emotional stability. Can he handle discomfort, or does he shut down? Can he stay grounded in conflict, or does he explode or retreat? Stoic insight #9. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. In relationships, self-mastery isn't about stoicism as silence. It's about responding, not reacting. A man who can navigate his own discomfort without making it her responsibility is rare, and rarity is irresistible. Third hidden trigger: humor, the right kind. Not jokes at others' expense, not rehearsed lines, but situational humor, self-deprecation, and laughter that's shared rather than performed. Humor diffuses anxiety, it breaks tension, it creates a sense of being in on something together. In evolutionary psychology, humor is linked to intelligence. But more importantly, it signals emotional flexibility, a trait that reassures safety. Real-life reflection. One woman said, "I knew I could fall for him when he made me laugh, even when I didn't want to. That's when I knew he could hold my darkness too." That's the secret. If you can hold lightness, you're more likely to be trusted with depth. Another overlooked factor: confidence in silence. Many men feel the need to fill every moment, explain themselves, or prove value. But women often respond more to the man who can sit in silence, not awkwardly, but peacefully. When you're comfortable without performance, it signals security. And security is the soil in which arousal grows. Stoic insight #10. Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings. Seneca. Sometimes not speaking is the most attractive thing you can do. And one last non-sexual trigger that gets ignored: constantly being witnessed. Women often feel unseen by society, by men, even by themselves. When a man notices her smallest changes, her new earrings, her change in energy, the way her eyes light up when she talks about her passion, that witnessing awakens her femininity. Because being seen without being judged or controlled creates the space where desire can unfold. A woman once recounted how her partner noticed her putting lotion on her hands and said, "I love the way you take care of yourself." It was such a small moment, but to her, it felt like love. This is the paradox of non-sexual arousal. It's not about igniting lust, it's about preparing the space in which lust becomes safe to express. Most men focus on the act. Few understand the setup. And that's why few ever get to experience the full depth of female desire. Let's strip away the theories, the hormone charts, the academic studies, and the ancient Stoic quotes just for a moment. Because beneath all the science and philosophy lies a human truth that's quietly waiting to be heard. What women really want is to feel safe enough to be fully themselves. To laugh without filtering, to cry without apologizing, to desire without shame, to express, to unfold, to connect without fearing that it makes them too much. And in that space of permission, something incredible happens. She gives back not out of obligation, but out of overflow. A woman who feels emotionally held will give you access to her most profound parts, not just physically, but spiritually. But it's a slow reveal, and it requires one thing above all: trust. Stoic insight. #11. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Marcus Aurelius. In love, this means be patient with her process, but hold yourself to the standard of integrity, presence, and awareness. If there's one thing we've seen through this journey, from eye contact to ovulation, from scent to silence, it's that female desire is relational. It's less about stimulation and more about safety, less about performance and more about presence, less about fantasy and more about feeling fully alive in another person's company. An elderly couple married for 47 years were once asked the secret to their connection. The husband said, "I never stopped being curious about her. Every decade she changed, and I learned to fall in love with each version." That's the key: not conquering, not decoding, but witnessing. Because no woman is one thing. She's a spectrum of seasons, cycles, stories. And the man who learns to move with that rhythm will experience the kind of connection that transcends time. It doesn't require money or mastery or even words. It requires attention. And that attention in this distracted, performative world is the rarest aphrodisiac of all. Final Stoic reflection. The Stoics didn't chase power or pleasure. They cultivated stillness, and from that stillness came wisdom, clarity, and strength. You don't need to chase women. Learn to create stillness in yourself, and you'll find they begin to approach you. Not because you're performing, but because you're real. So here's your challenge. Be the man who listens before he speaks. Be the one who witnesses before he acts. Be the one who remains grounded when others seek validation. And as you evolve into that version of yourself, slowly, imperfectly, patiently, you won't just understand women better. You'll understand what it means to love better.